Welcome to One Happy Lawyer, the estate planning podcast.
Welcome to One Happy Lawyer, the estate planning podcast with Attorney Dan Krause, founder of Krause Estate Planning and Elder Law Center in Wisconsin. Dan has been practicing estate planning and elder law since 1999 and is board certified as an estate planner and law specialist. I'm Lisa Mosbey, your host, and today we're stepping away from the legal mechanics and focusing on Dan's story. How his background led him into estate planning, what drew him to this work, and why helping families plan with clarity and confidence has been the focus of his career for more than 2 decades. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, it's great to be back with you, Lisa. I always enjoy our conversations.
You know, Dan, before we get into your legal work, I'd like to start at the beginning. What originally put you on the path toward law in the first place?
Well, that's a debate. My parents will tell you that I just loved to argue and it was natural for me, but I had never considered law as a career until I was in the Army. I was a private in the Army. I was a combat medic was my job. But every day in the Army in the 80s, we didn't have a war, which was good. I mean, I'm really glad that didn't happen while I was a private. But we had to, we were crawling in the mud. We were cold. We were wet. We were rained on. We were living out in the woods a lot of times. And we were the low people on the totem pole. So we had to do all the work, it seemed like. And we got the least amount of sleep and all of that. And I decided sometime in there was a revelation. And I said, this is not for me. I'm going to be the president one day. And so I worked back from that. And I said, well, to be the president, first, you probably have to be a senator. And in order to get there, you probably have to go to law school and learn about laws and how to make laws and things like that. So at that point, I just decided that I'm going to go to law school as one of the steps in order to get to be the president. As you probably know, I'm not the president. I haven't run for president, but I did get through law school, and that's how I decided to become a lawyer. Truth be told, by the time I got out of law school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my law degree. I knew I wanted to help people because that's what I've been doing. So I got to law school and then made decisions after that.
And I love that story. I think it's a great story. It shows, how you aspire to greatness in your life and you just go after it. Your background includes military service as well as time in the Peace Corps. I know that, which isn't a typical path to estate planning. So I want to know, how did these experiences shape the way that you think about service and responsibility?
So I'm not sure whether the Peace Corps and the Army really shaped my idea about service. I think that was before that. And for some reason, just the way that I was brought up, my parents, good people, my family, extended family, all really wonderful people. And I grew up realizing that I really had it better than a lot of people. And I felt like that gave me a duty or responsibility to make sure that I can help other people that maybe don't have the advantages that I had. Now, it's not a story of riches. We didn't grow up rich. In fact, we struggled with money, but we always had enough to eat, and the family was always together, and we all made it through, and we all celebrated Thanksgiving and reminded each other how lucky we were to just be together. And that made me want to just spread that to people that didn't have that. So the Army was more of a way to pay for college. It taught me just all kinds of things. But the Peace Corps was a way to say, hey, how can I get back? And both of those things didn't really hurt my chances at getting into really great law school, which I did. So they look at your resume as well.
Was there one thing from your time in the Peace Corps that stays with you today?
There are just so many things in the Peace Corps that stay with me today. But Mainly it's that the small things are what matters. It's being with somebody during a hard time, uh, doing what you can person to person to help that person is really, I mean, it's universal. You could do it with your neighbor. I had to maybe go halfway across the world to Kenya in East Africa to really realize that. But um, that's really what I took out of that is if you want to help people, focus on what's in front of you.
I think the Peace Corps should be available for us elders now because I couldn't appreciate it back then, but right now I think I would get a lot of value out of being able to serve in that capacity. So thank you for
Well, I
sharing
want
that.
to encourage you to look into it because there are elder people that do Peace Corps, and it's not always the traditional 2 years. People can sign up for a few months, depending on whether they have a specialty that is in need. So if you're really interested, look into it because it's
I
it's a
didn't know
it's a
that.
wider open program than just for 20 somethings.
Great. You know, after law school, you served as an Army JAG officer and also worked as an Army medic. How did being in environments where decisions carry real life consequences influence how you approach serious planning conversations today?
Well, the thing about being in the Army and specifically in being in the JAG Corps, you really become accustomed to working with regulations, and there's rules about everything. There's rules about how you should tie your boots. There's rules about, the way that you hold your rifle or the way that you dress and, where your buttons and your ribbons go and they get it down to the fraction of an inch. And it's all very scripted. Now, does that help us? It helped me to realize that estate planning is where I wanted to be because that is also planning. So the military is not just putting your ribbons on, right? But it's doing planning and planning for what might happen, planning for what could happen, thinking about the worst case scenario and then inserting a plan in there that you're going to try to execute to make that scenario better, to come out and make things better instead of making things worse. The Army taught me a lot about putting together documents, a lot about interpreting regulations and rules so that the documents are working together so that it all works and it all works towards the benefit of the person that's signing the documents. Because when you taken into account all the regulations, all the rules, all the laws, and then you cut a plan through them for your client, it's very much like planning a court martial. It's very much like doing just sometimes it's even like marching in a line. It's just making sure that the way things are done, you don't go against that because that's where you get in trouble. So you want to follow the rules, but you also want to make sure that the rules are the ones helping you instead of keeping you back.
20 years of estate planning and uh, elder law. Wow, that's a long time. You know, over that time, what have you noticed about families and what they tend to realize through this planning process?
So actually about 27 years right now. Um, and I want to tell you a story about why I decided estate planning was really for me. When I got out of law school, as I said earlier, I really didn't know what I was going to do with the law. I knew I wanted to help people, so I searched for public interest type jobs, and I found a job with an Indian tribe in Wisconsin, the Menominee Indian tribe, where I worked for about 8 months, and then I worked for another tribe in Green Bay, the Oneida tribe, for about 8 months, and then I realized, not being an Indian or Native American myself, I wasn't going to get very far in those organizations. So I decided to start my own law office. But even before this, as soon as I got out of law school, I wasn't even licensed yet to practice law because I was studying for the bar. My grandparents approached me and they said, now you're an attorney, can you help us to make sure that our little 5 acres of a sandy lot here in central Wisconsin goes to who we want it to go to, that we don't lose it in case one of us or both of us need long-term care in a nursing home, etc. And even though I had never studied that in law school, I said, that sounds like something that I would love to do. I was very close with my grandparents, and so I wanted to help them with this. So I started reading the legal books on estate planning. I started putting together a will for them. I started putting together powers of attorney, and I started looking at what we can do to make sure that they wouldn't lose that little plot of land that they wanted to make sure went to my mom and her sister and her brother. So we did that, and I just fell in love with it. It wasn't fighting like, a lot of attorneys do, which they maybe like that a lot. It was coming up with a plan and making sure that somebody's life goals are not dropped at the end of life. Also, I just love working with my grandparents, and I love working with older people. As I'm getting older, as we're all getting older, it really becomes important to realize that there's so much gold that can be cherished in the older people. The wisdom, the laughter, the companionship, and the opportunity to help the people that have helped us. So all of that together with the story of Grandma. So part of the memory of Grandma is in our law office, Krause Estate Planning and Elder Law Center. We want, and we tell each other, we want to give our clients the warm cookie experience. And that's the experience that I remember from my grandma's kitchen, right? So we want people to come in and we want them to feel like we want them there. And we actually have cookies most of the time. Sometimes we run out. But hopefully if you come in and somebody doesn't ask you for a cookie, you should ask them and say, can you warm it up for me? They'll bring it to you while you're waiting to meet with your attorney or the paralegal or whoever, and try to give you that warm cookie experience.
Dan, what a wonderful opportunity to get to know you better, to get to know your commitment to the elder community. Thank you so much for sharing your stories today.
It's wonderful talking to you, and I don't always enjoy talking about myself, but you make it so comfortable.
Yeah, that's a wrap for today's episode of One Happy Lawyer, the Estate Planning Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Attorney Dan Krause and his work at Krause Estate Planning and Elder Law Center, you can visit estateplanningpeople.com. Thank you for listening, and if you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe. If you just want to meet Dan, please set up a time where you can consult with him, and come on back for the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.